Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Denyas. I'm a spiritual director in the Pennsylvania area, and I am sharing with you stories from the Old Testament or from the Hebrew Bible. And this is the third in a series, and we're just at Abraham and Sarah, so it's about Genesis 12, and we're going to kind of look at the high level of their lives and who they were and why they matter. So Abraham and Sarah, when we meet them, are two people. They actually have different names, Abram and Sarai. And God renames them. I'm going to just call them Abraham and Sarah because it's a bit easier for me. But they are called to leave everything that's familiar to them. I think this is something God frequently does in people's lives, is calls them to leave what's familiar. It gets real when we're outside our comfort zone, right? So at the time they are called to leave their families and their land and all that is security to them, Sarah is 65 years old. Abraham is 75. There's 10 years between them, and they are without children. Sarah is said to be barren. They live in Turkey, present-day Turkey, and God calls them to go to a land called Canaan, about 500, 600 miles away. And right from the beginning, God promises to bless them. He says, I'm going to give you land, and I'll show you what that land is. I'm going to make you a great nation, which, there is a bit of a problem here, Lord, because Sarah is barren. And I will bless you, and you will be a blessing. So that's how it kind of starts out. Abraham's response, the Bible says, Abraham went, packed up his nephew Lot, who was his brother's child, and off they went. This is a long journey, both physically and I think spiritually for them. At age 99, so about almost 25 years later, after different situations in their lives, including Abraham's inability to tell the truth to people in power, the covenant, the Abraham covenant is given. God meets with Abraham, and the covenant is to be, you're to worship only me. I'm to be the lone God. You will be numerous. Again, a problem because Sarah still hasn't conceived at this point. And the land you go to, I'm giving to you. This land is very important. So the land and God get connected, as well as children. That's kind of a three-legged stool here, if you will. In exchange for this covenant, and here comes the hard bit, especially for men. Every time I teach this, I just can see the men cringe. They were to be circumcised. All of the men were to be circumcised. If a child was born, a male, 8 days later, he was to be circumcised. So Abraham at 99 circumcises all the male servants in his household. Every male in the Jewish household was to be circumcised. It's interesting because Sarah, at a certain point, she gives her servant Haggai to Abraham to conceive with her. She's an Egyptian servant. And they conceive a child called Ishmael, who is not considered Jewish. There is a tradition, and I think it's based on this story, that the Jewishness is transferred through the woman and not the man. It is the mother that carries the Jewishness. So anyway, back to Sarah and Abraham. Sarah is 90 when Isaac is born. They have waited 25 years. 25 years they've waited for God to fulfill this promise. This shows me God moves at a pace that is not understood by me. That's too slow, I would have said. But the Abraham and Sarah, I think, changed so much from the beginning to the end. And that 25 years was part of the change. Something happens to us as we wait on God to move. Something deepens and stills within us when we stop trying to push, as Richard Rohr says, push the river ourselves. Sarah pushed the river herself when she said, here, take my servant and conceive with her. God said, no, that's not my plan. My plan is still that Sarah will bring forth this child. Another thing that happens, we're not sure, maybe Isaac is that's their son. When they finally have a son, they name him Isaac. And we'll talk about him next time. Isaac is to be sacrificed. God comes to Abraham and says, come sacrifice Isaac. And again, Abraham goes, and it must have been happening around him. There must have been child sacrifices. It's believed that there wasn't a big fuss about it. But they pack up everything, and they hike out to the mountain, and they build an altar. And Isaac finally asks, Dad, where's the sacrificial lamb, the sacrificial animal? And Abraham says, God will provide. And pretty soon, Isaac is tied up and put on the altar, and Abraham has his knife in the air to slice his throat, and an angel stops his hand or arm from moving and says, look, and there in the bush is a ram that's to be sacrificed. There is a testing, I believe, in God. I used to think it was kind of the death of dreams. You know, we get a dream from God and then it would kind of die painfully, frequently. Maybe you've had that happen. And then if we can hold steady, as we allow God to move in our lives, as we allow God to heal us maybe, or still us, or move us from our false self, our ego, to that deeper place in ourselves, our truer self, then God begins to move. I think we'll end there. Next time we're together, we'll take a look at Isaac and his wife and look at their story. And just maybe consider what I've talked about today. Consider how God might be moving in your life. Maybe you're at a waiting area. Maybe you're in a 25-year wait. I know one thing that helped me is someone who can talk with me about that aspect of my life. Spiritual directors are gifted at this. If you would like to connect with me, my website is kimdenyas.com, but you can also do research on the internet and find, I'm sure, gifted and talented people within your neck of the woods. Thanks again for being here, and it's also helpful if you would subscribe or like to this. Thanks. Look forward to being with you again soon. Bye-bye.